Hi, my name is Terry, and you're watching Terry Tells the Story. Today, we're talking about the Pirate Republic. You've been told that the pirates were the villains of the high seas. But while the British Crown and the CEOs of the 1700s were treating human beings like disposable gears in a machine, the pirates were building the world's first true democracy. If you think your boss is exploitative, wait until you hear about the legal alternative in 1715. Before a man turned pirate, he was a merchant sailor, and life there was a death sentence. You worked in filth, you died of scurvy, and if you made a minor mistake, you were lashed until your back was ribbons. But the real crime was the paycheck. It was basically maritime sharecropping. If a crate of tea got wet or a rope snapped, the owners took it out of your pay. Men would finish a 2-year voyage and owe the company money. They were slaves to the contract. But why would a man choose a life that ended on a rope at an execution dock? Because the legal alternative was a living hell. Merchant sailors were the gears of the British Empire, and they were treated like trash. Captains had total sadistic authority. An officer would have a veteran sailor lashed until his bones showed for a slow knot. Owners would charge sailors for food, for medicine, and for damaged goods. A man could spend 3 years at sea and return home with a bill instead of a paycheck. Piracy wasn't just a crime, it was an exit strategy. When a crew mutinied, they didn't just replace one tyrant with another. They wrote articles of agreement. Long before the common man in London could vote, every pirate had a say. They elected their captain, and if he was too violent, too weak, or too greedy, they didn't wait for an election cycle. They voted him out on the spot. To ensure the captain didn't get CEO brain, they elected a quartermaster, a tribunal of the people who handled the money and the discipline. It was the world's first real system of checks and balances. Decades before modern insurance, pirates had a common chest. If you were injured in the line of duty, you were set for life. If you lost a right arm, you'd be compensated 600 pieces of eight, or 500 for a left arm, and 100 for an eye. They understood that the strength of the crew depended on the security of the individual. They looked after their wounded while the British Navy left their disabled veterans to beg in the streets of London. Now, this is the part that the history books skip. Pirate ships were some of the most integrated places on Earth. When a slave ship was captured, the Africans on board weren't property to the pirates. They were potential brothers. Men would fling themselves from the chains of slave ships into the ocean, and pirates would fish them out, break their irons, and hand them a weapon. On a pirate ship, if you could fight, if you could sail, and if you stood by your brothers, you were an equal, period. The color of your skin didn't matter, only the color of your flag. They even had a system called metallitage. It was a formal partnership between two men, a precursor to same-sex civil unions. They shared their booty, no pun intended. They fought side by side, and they signed legal contracts ensuring that if one fell, the other inherited everything. They created a family structure where the world said they weren't allowed to have one. And then there's Edward Teach, Blackbeard. He was a master of the brand. He didn't want to kill you. He wanted you to surrender. He'd weave slow-burning fuses into his beard and hair, so he appeared out of a cloud of smoke like a demon from hell. He used psychological warfare to win battles without even firing a shot. He was an architect of fear because he valued the lives of his crew too much to waste them in a fight. They lived under constant threat of the noose. They lived with the ghost stories of the deep. But for a few years in the early 1700s, they were the only truly free people on the planet. They chose a merry life and a short one over a long life of kneeling. So the next time you see a corporate leader exploiting thousands for a third yacht, remember that the guys with the eye patches may actually be the good guys. So, the Spanish I'm going to be teaching you today is punto final. Punto final. And that means end of story. If you like this video or you learned something new, drop a like down below. If you have a specific topic that you'd like to see me cover, drop me a comment. And if you'd like to support this work that I do, there'll be a link to the Cash App in the description box below. We'll see you next time.